could be us.
What's up, guys? It's Houston Recovery Radio again. It's Tuesday night with Charlie Billion Prayers. We've already got the conversation rolling, but we're gonna roll it back. Catch up. Right off the bat, I want to say thanks and a big shout out to Transformation Enzyme Corporation for giving us this nice space to sit in here and chat. So we really appreciate it. We're doing this stuff of our own free will, and we're not making any money off of it. We're certainly not professionals, as you guys have figured out. But we're trying, man. You know what I mean?
It's supposed to have fun.
Yeah, it's a freaking learning curve too, dude.
Absolutely,
it's nuts. So Charlie, man. So what I know, a little bit that I know about you so far, we're just now getting to kind of know each other, but. I know you're a guy around town, and you sponsor a lot of dudes, and you're spoken highly of everywhere you go. And I hear you got a lot of information to pass around. So, okay. Just if you don't mind, if you would just tell your story, kind of like a speaker meeting.
Sure.
And then towards the end, we'll do maybe a 15 or 20-minute Q&A. And guys, this Q&A, we're live. So chime in, ask questions. We got our squad back here to reading your questions. So we will get them out there to Charlie, and he will answer them. All right.
Alrighty.
Take it away, Charlie.
Yeah. Hey everybody, Charlie G, alcoholic, aka Charlie Billion Prayers on Facebook. I may spend a few minutes talking about that Facebook ministry at the end. But we're here tonight about recovery. My sobriety date this time is March 13th of 2006. I've had the gift of sobriety twice now. I got sober the first time in July of 98. And we'll start off at the beginning, and then we'll talk about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. The first drink that I remember, I was very young, probably 4 years old at best. My parents were at a pool party, and everybody was drinking tequila shots, banging on the table, squeezing the lime, doing the little salt gig, and margaritas. And, it was hot, Texas summer. It looked good, looked like a little ice cream. Everybody seemed to be having a good time, and I thought I should taste some. The couple whose house we were at was my Aunt Ginger and Uncle Glenn, and I asked Aunt Ginger if I could taste some of that margarita because it looked good, and she made me some in a rocks glass, some of the frozen. They drank quite a bit, so those drinks were strong. And when she gave it to me, I'm sure she assumed that I was just going to taste it or whatever. But I drank it, slammed it, banged on the table, squeezed the lime, and it was frozen margarita, but I still felt that heat and I felt that warmth. And the big book talks about the ease and comfort of those first few drinks.
Oh, yeah.
And I might not have been born an alcoholic, but definitely at that first drink, an alcoholic was born. And Aunt Ginger saw me slam that thing, and she looked over at my daddy and she said, "That boy's going to be an alcoholic." We'll never know how right we do know how right she was. I mean, very early on, there's two schools of thought. Was it the abusive drinking or was the neurosis there first? I'm of the school of thought that in most of us, those 15%ers, as they say, who have the allergy, that once we start, we cannot stop. The neurosis is there first. So I was lying and manipulating and doing all kinds of crazy stuff as a young kid. I used to fly back and forth to Mexico City for holidays to see my family. I started flying by myself, and while on the trip, I would steal bottles from the little cart that went down the middle of the airplane. We're talking 8, 9 years old. I remember being in 4th grade or 5th grade or something. We had a test. I wasn't ready for it. I told the teacher that I had lost my contact lens. So all of the kids were sitting Indian style in their chairs while my teacher and I, combed the floor for this contact lens. But I don't wear glasses. I never wore contacts. And at the end of the semester, my teacher reminded me of that. So the lying, the manipulation, the stealing, the wanting my way and getting my way was there very early. My parents were separated on and off while I was growing up. But when I was very young, I remember them coming together for a weekend to take me out and me telling my parents that I had had a dream. I said, Mommy and Daddy, I had a dream and God talked to me in my dream and he said that we would be together as a family. And every kid wants their mom and dad to be together. Every kid wants to have a family, that family unit, the way you see it on Leave It to Beaver or whatever. But to me, looking back in retrospect, all that stuff was the manipulation. So let's fast forward a little bit and get to the good stuff. 10 years old, smoking weed. Joints were $2. They were big and fat. And immediately I knew that I could probably split that and sell one and smoke one. And I was in sales.
Back when a
in
dime
sixth
bag
grade.
cost a dime, huh?
And they were fat. I'm talking about they were fat joints, man. They were, but for $2 and a big fat joint, and I could split it and make it. And, we got kids in middle school smoking. So 10 years old smoking weed, 14 years old, I did some coke, bump in my freshman journalism class. Kid's name was Etan Fitzwadi. I don't know where he's at. I don't know if he's in AA. I don't care about his anonymity. I'd be real lucky to see if he was alive still. The way he lived, the way I lived, the way we lived back then, the people that I hung out with. So acid, hallucinogens, Medusa, all kinds of great stuff was going around in the club scene, in the 80s. The real X was coming from Amsterdam, and it was a whole different ball game, that stuff was really, really good. It was kind of like the 60s, I guess, said Love Child and all that, but the X of those days was just, amazing. So a little bit of everything is part of my story. It's not just alcohol, but my story begins and ends with alcohol. And I am an alcoholic who participated in all kinds of outside issues. I didn't really start having consequences till I was out of high school. My first DWI, I was 19 years old. By that time, I had been drinking and driving for 4.5, 5 years. I was taking the car out when I was 14 years old, but I was smoking weed and or drinking every day since I was a freshman. I mean, that I can remember. There might have been a day or two here and there, but they were rare, few and far between. So by the time I got that first DWI, I had probably driven, whatever that is, I did the math on it, 2,000 days. And the judge said, you got to go to AA. Oh, you got to go to the Houston Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse and get an evaluation. And then so there, they told me that I needed to go to AA at least 3 times a week. The first meeting I was ever supposed to go to was the young people's meeting at Post Oak at 8:00 Sunday night. I got there late and I didn't want to go in. I saw all the kids outside and it was late. And I was like, I don't want to go to the meeting late, excuses. The next night was a Monday and I went to the Spring Branch Club, 6:00. I got there not on time, but not that late. And I got there early enough to hear the leader say, is anybody here for the first time? I was. And I looked around the room and it was a big room and it was quite crowded. And nobody else said that they were there for the first time. Now, you and I had talked a little bit about, the fight game. I had been in sports. I was raised in a Polynesian family. So contact and collision and, fear they're just not accepted.
Samoans are some tough ass people, man.
And I'm only a half stack. But, if you asked me when I was, growing up, if I was scared of anything, I wasn't. I rode motorcycles on acid in the rain on the Beltway before it was open. We fought, all the time. Man, I had friends that's all we did was wrestle, do push-ups, drink, smoke, hang out. It was just fun. We wrestle and fight for shotgun. I mean, that's just the way we did it when we grew up, man. But that first meeting in AA, is anybody here for the first time? And nobody else was, and I wasn't going to raise my hand and admit to that. So I sat through the meeting, and there was a girl there. She was from my high school, and she was probably the top 5 most beautiful women in my high school, girls in my high school. And she already had a year at that time. She was a year older than me. And I heard her say that she had a year. I was like, oh, wow, cool. And she was one of those party girls who was always at the parties with me and popular and cheerleader, drill team, whatever it was. Her name was Amy. I know, I don't think that she's in AA now, but I know that she's not out there like that, like we were when we were growing up. She married a pastor. And, anyway, so
party girl done good.
Exactly. Turned her life totally around. And, but, they tell you in the meetings the same thing, yesterday in the meeting on Zoom or today at lunch on Zoom, get a sponsor, work the steps, go to meetings, and don't drink. And at the end of the meeting, I went over to her and said, hi. I said, hey, Amy, what's going on? And, this was my first meeting. And she's like, how come you didn't say anything? And I was like, oh, well, I didn't know how this works and whatever. But they said, hey, get a sponsor, so why don't you be my sponsor? And she was like, she was like,
disaster.
No, it doesn't work that way. So I didn't really like AA because Amy couldn't be my sponsor, but I wasn't really trying to feel AA. I wasn't trying to hear it. I had already fully conceded, as the big book says in the first step in the chapter more about alcoholism. It says we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. And I had already done that before I got to my first meeting. I had decided that I was not going to be able to stop drinking and using, that I did not want to stop drinking and using, and that I was okay with dying from an overdose, an accident, or some kind of mishap, which happens to alcoholics and addicts, when they're in their cups, as it were, doing their dealing, doing their deals, being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Alcoholics don't like to be told what to do. They don't like people when they don't agree with them. And, certain violent circumstances can arise from that.
Oh, yeah.
So I, living the kind of life that I lived when I was growing up, I had already fully conceded that I was going to go on to the bitter end, as the book says on 25, blotting out the consciousness of my intolerable existence. So that was 19. Fast forward almost 10 years and skip all the jails, institutions, and near-death experiences, because there's a bunch of them in there in everybody's story. I don't like to tell my story too much, because I've got one of those stories that when people in AA and in the rooms hear it, they'll say, oh, I'm not as bad as that guy. But the thing about my story is that I started drinking and using so young, and that I was so convinced and utterly convinced that I was an alcoholic and an addict that was going to just die that way at a very early age. And then to have the life that I have now because of recovery, in recovery, with recovery, is a real miracle. So it doesn't matter where you're at I'm a little alcoholic, very alcoholic, extremely super, way, hopeless alcoholic.
Of the hopeless variety.
And we just, it doesn't matter where you're at on that scale. And the book says it in the very beginning, in the foreword to the first edition. We're sure that our way of life has benefits for all. And that means whether you're alcoholic or not, or you're a little, medium, or a lot. Just like steak, right?
Yeah.
Medium rare, medium well done. So I'm the real alcoholic that was well done, and it worked for me. It works for me as long as I do it. So fast forward, lots of jails, institutions, and death. And in 1998, I came home from a short little stint in the system, in the Texas Department of Corrections, for a third DWI. But that whole third DWI that's a fluke, because while on bond for that third DWI with no license, I forged a license and got a car and wrecked it in a blackout.
Oh, man.
Woke up at Ben Taub. So that's really 3 third DWIs, because I got arrested for a third DWI. Then with a revoked license, forged a license, got a car, wrecked that, did not get in any trouble. My dad thought I died. I could have died, should have died, should have gotten another one, but I didn't. And then got another car and got another third DWI. So it's really 3 third DWIs on that little thing. If you did the math on that, you might be one of us.
Can you imagine trying to forge a license today?
So with the forging license things, that was my second forged license. I forged one when I was 17. Got a birth certificate from a baby that had died at birth.
You are crafty, man.
And it wasn't my idea, but I did benefit from it. It cost me $50. It was so cool because it was my same birth month. So if they asked me what sign I was, I knew to say Taurus. And that was in May. And the initials were LSD. It was Lonzo Sebastian Zinzi. So I just thought I was so cool. I had my fake ID when I was 17. No. Yeah. When I was 17, I got it when I was 17. So I'm clubbing. I'm working in the clubs at 17. You know, I bar back to Colorado, and I was a door guy at Excess for a little while. You know, those are some of the cool clubs at that time. And, you know, I mean, so I'm drinking, I'm using, I'm dealing, the whole thing from 16 and up, you know, but we don't want to glorify those times, right. And we don't need to talk about that much. I'm going to fast forward to 98. I come home after having been saved by the blood of Jesus in jail, going to Bible study, going to church, not drinking, not using, everything's good. My life's changed. I'm strong. I'm good. The first thing I do when I get off the bus, stop at the bar. It's time to drink. And after that first drink, it's time to call the man. So I spent that first weekend knowing I had to go see the PO, getting high all weekend. Went in and pissed dirty, and he said that was my first freebie. So I was like, if they give me one, they'll give me a couple more. And I was off to the races again, just coming home. Sorry about that.
It's okay. No worries, man.
And I got my job I had been working in the gym business on and off for a long time. My bio says that I'd done all kinds of things. You know, maybe we'll talk about some of those things if you ask me.
Heck yeah.
I was in the restaurant and bar business on and off for a long time. I was in the fitness business on and off for a long time. I was in the real estate business on and off for a long time till I got in trouble while I was in sobriety.
Sobriety, I like that.
I'll get to that real quick too. But in 1998, World Gym got bought out by 24 Hour Fitness, February 4th of 98. That's when I signed up Jace Jeans, Lynn Oding, and Eves Edwards. Yeah. And that's how I met Saul, and that's when Saul was coming over there to the 24 Hour Fitness on Richmond and 610 to train me. Yeah, small world. Yeah. But I'm drinking, I'm getting high, I'm top producer in the company. You know, I've got the general managers. I don't think they make that anymore, but during that time they were making six-figure money, and I was next in line, general manager material, and I was screwing it up royally. My dad went to the gym, and he told my boss, he said, "Hey man, I know my son's doing good. Do y'all want him? Do y'all need him? Because he's going to kill himself, kill somebody, or hurt himself, or, you know, go back and do some time. Can y'all help him?" So I got a call to come into work, and my boss said, "Hey man, your dad came up here and he said that you're having a problem with alcohol and drugs, and, you know, he wants to know if we can do anything." He made me call Mike, that's my general manager, calling the regional vice president, who called the divisional vice president, who called number 3 in the company, and they all had me on a conference call.
Damn intervention.
Yeah. So we're late June. That was early July of 98. I had just won the contest to go to Hawaii. Top producers went to Hawaii that year, every year, with 24 Hour Fitness, and I had won the contest, but I had missed about 10 days of work. And so I'm on the conference call with them, and, you know, one of the main guys, he says, "Hey, look, you're not the first hot shot that likes to do coke and drink and party and you chase women and do all that crazy stuff. I did it, he did it, so-and-so. But look, you are not valuable if the pile of production, no matter how great, is outweighed by the pile of shit that goes along with you. We would rather have a guy that had a very small pile of production and no pile of shit with him, because he's very valuable to the company." Yeah. Do you see that? It's like, wow. I guess so. I thought I was, grandiose, and, I thought I was number one in the company was a big deal, but the pile of shit that went along with me was bigger than that pile of gross. Yeah. This book talks about right sizing, and that was one of the ones that really hit me between the eyes. That's one of the ones that I use with my guys in sales and even in sponsorship, getting right sized. So he said, "Hey, look, you have an opportunity with this company to make 6 figures. You could probably make more than that as a regional vice president. If you get your act together, we want you. If you don't, go be successful somewhere else. What you gonna do? I said, I'll go. I'll do it. Whatever. They let me go to Hawaii. So I took the rest of the month off, and then my trip to Hawaii was 4 days. And that last day, July 26th of 1998, was a Sunday. And as the sun came up, I was out in the water, and I asked God, I said, if you want me to be sober, make it easy for me. That was my third step prayer before I knew what the third step was all about. It was a big deal. And that day I thought I meant to have my last drink. I thought it was going to be my last drink, and I told everybody it was going to be my last drink, and it was my last drink for a while. About a half a bottle of Absolute with a little bit of cranberry in it. Everybody in the hotel room was like, man, that's all the vodka we have. I was like, yeah, it's my last drink. I got to go to treatment tomorrow. They're like, bullshit. You're not getting sober. We know you. You know, I had my doubts, but I was going to give it a shot. And so I came to Houston. I went to the park. It was over there off Gessner. Spring Shadows Glen is what it was called at the time. And I checked in and, started doing the evaluations, and I definitely qualified. But we knew that from way before. At the park, I met my sponsor. My sponsor is Ron K. He celebrated 25 years in February. His wife celebrates later this year, I think May or June. His son celebrated with me in March, 12 years. And they've been a real big part of my recovery, my sobriety. They are my family too. My sponsor knows me better than my daddy. That is crucial. The book says nothing so much ensures immunity as intensive work with other alcoholics. So that means the prospect with his sponsor, and it means a sponsor with his prospects. It's both. It's not either. It's both. I did everything I was told to do, even though I didn't believe that it would work for me. And I had that conversation with my sponsor. I said, man, I started drinking real young. I started drugging real young. It's all I know. How is doing these meetings and working the steps and reading the book with another guy going to stop a guy like me from drinking and using? And he said, we don't have to figure that out right now. And the beautiful thing is, if it doesn't work, you can blame us. So now I'm an alcoholic and an addict, and I got an out. So I went with it. I did it to the best of my ability, and I told that story several times as I picked up my chips on my anniversaries. I had almost 8 years the first time, but at about 2 years, I started making money. I left the gym business, and I got into real estate on accident. That's kind of a cool story too. How am I doing on time?
You're doing great, man.
At 7:20, I've got I'm just trying to think. I want to do about 10 more minutes on what it was like.
Yeah. Man.
So I'm in the gym business. I'm sober for a couple years. I got my general manager job. I cleaned up a bunch of gyms. I made $110,000 in 2000, but I didn't work November and December. When I did my taxes, I think I got like almost $27,000 back in 2001. So that's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of money to make for being a dumb gym guy. In November, the girl I was dating got pregnant, even though I had begged her to be careful.
That kind of works both ways, right?
Nice. We'll get to that later. So yeah. Made me lose my train of thought. So we went out to drink. We went out to Houston's restaurant on Kirby, and we had dinner. It was my friend Scott and Gina, and he was one of my sponsees at the time, and Glenna and I, and the girls. We went up to the bar to go watch the game or something. I guess maybe smoke a cigar. When we came back, the girls were laughing, and we're like, "What's going on? We need to go do EPTs." I looked at Glenna. I said, "What do you mean we?" Yeah, well, her and Gina. Yeah. I was meant you. Why do you have to? I thought we got that covered. I thought we were being careful, but anyway. So we ended up. We were pregnant. that night, the guys that were waiting on me had been sales guys for me. And they were telling me, hey, we're mortgage loan officers now, and we're waiting tables at night till that picks up. But if you need help with your credit, if you want to buy a house, come see us. No, everything's great. We're good. I'm single. I mean, I'm, not single, but but that weekend everything changed. So I went in to go see those guys, and they had told the broker about me being a general manager, multilingual, organized, sales, management, blah, blah, blah. And the guy doesn't try to do my loan. He doesn't try to do my credit. He tries to close me on becoming a loan officer and, working for him.
You got recruited.
I mean, I was like, hey, I thought we got to pull my credit. I need to buy a house, and I just got paid. And so he closes me on he tries to close me on becoming a loan officer. I said, look, man, I'm making six figures. I'm on cruise control. I'm next generation district manager, regional vice president, man. I'm good. I appreciate it, man. I know these guys told you, but I'm really, really unemployable. I mean, you have no idea what 24-hour fitness put up with me to get me to where I'm at now. So anyway, there was payday. So after I left the office, I go to get my check, and my check is messed up. My commissions are off by about, I don't know, man, $4 or $5 grand or something, man. Because something with the transfer, I moved from one gym to the other.
Nice.
They screwed it up. We got Christmas coming, and my check is messed up. I think after a few weeks, I thought it was a sign from God. I used it as a sign from God. They didn't get it right before Christmas, and I called my district manager. I said, hey, man, blood, sweat, and tears, 60, 70 hours a week for a couple of years. It's been great. It's great money. But if we can't get my check right in a month, I mean, I got a kid coming. I'm about to get married. Thank you for everything. I'm going to go try to be successful somewhere else.
Right.
And I went into the mortgage business, commission only, no experience in 01. And very quickly, I got into hard money, foreclosure bailout, real estate investing, the rehabbing, the subprime, the credit repair.
That's when all that housing bubble was going on, right?
This is 01.
Yeah. So
we're on our way up. Mortgage rates are, low, and it's going up. It crashed in 08.
Yeah.
It crashed in 08. And that's when I should have been doing more recovery, but I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to use, and I was in so dry at tea. I would go to my birthday month, and I would probably do 90 meetings in 30 days. So I'd go to 2-3 meetings. I'd show up 10 minutes before the meeting was over. Hey, Charlie, got 2 years, got 3 years, got 5 years, got 7 years. I was in the mortgage business for a year, and then I got my own office. I got approved to be a banker. We didn't have to disclose yield spread on the HUD, my own credit line. We're buying houses like crazy. The guy that sold me my first house showed me how to flip houses, and not exactly legally. So it was off to the races. 9/11 had just happened, and all of the builders all across the country had all kinds of inventory all over the country. So their credit lines are maxed out. They can't re-up so they can build more houses. The small builders to the big builders, and we came in there and just guys like me all over the country. At that time, I had an office off Post Oak. I got invited to raise money for President Bush 43, Bush Cheney 04. So for a couple of years, I was flying around the country trying to get money for that guy.
That's where that picture of you and the Bush family comes from.
Yeah, and if you take a good look at the original print, you can see that the first lady has her hand on my ass. I threw my hips forward. I couldn't believe it. That's that Kool-Aid smile, and you can see her little grin. I'll show it to you. It's in the house. I got
to fist bump you on that
one. She's got a little smirk on her face. And that was actually a really funny story, man. We waited in line for about an hour. We had just eaten lunch. My boy was almost he was almost 2. That was 03. He was almost 2, and we had just had lunch. And as soon as it was our turn to take the picture, my son loaded up his diaper, and the president wanted to hold my son. So I handed him to the president, and he grabs the diaper, and he looks at me. So we took the picture. He's like, that boy's loaded down. And And then when he met my daughter, he said, "Oh, you are just gorgeous," or something like that. And she just rolled her eyes at the president. And when we left, the first thing she said was, "Man, he is so fake." I was like, God, my daughter had such classic lines at the right time. But anyway, so I'm in sobriety. I'm making money. I'm flying all over the country. I lived in Vegas for a while. I lived at the Bellagio for about 4 months. I had an apartment in Newport Beach, California for a couple years. I'm not getting drunk. I'm not getting high, but I'm creating destruction and devastation. I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good father for that matter because I'm not around. Even though I flew in from the West Coast on Saturday morning to be at my daughter's soccer game several times, that was more about me than it was about her. I have a little bit of an estranged relationship with her. I love her so very much, and her beautiful children, my grandkids. That's all going to work out. We've gone through some rough times. Her mother and I, excuse me, we don't need to talk about that too much. It wasn't a good deal. I wasn't a good husband. wasn't a good daddy there for a while.
Yeah, I was a pretty shitty husband too. I got divorced after 12 years in with my ex-wife. I wasn't that good of a
Yeah, I didn't last that long. I think it was a couple of years, and I was off to the races making money. I was just not a good husband, man. But anyway, we let's get back to the good story. We're about to get into some recovery. The book says that the insanity returns, and then we drink again, and that's what happened to me. One event led to another, and I ended up having my hands on an ounce of hydro. I've been sober almost 8 years, and I thought it was a good idea to handle an ounce of hydro. I thought that it would be good so that my ex wouldn't go and smoke with her little friends in places that she shouldn't be going to, so I could just keep her at home and she'd be smoking good stuff instead of dank. Instead of swag, I mean.
Swag.
But very quickly it was blow some dro on me. Then when she wasn't around, I was like, everybody else is getting wasted on this dro, man. It's March of 2006. And, I'm burning it, and it's like, it's not doing anything. I'm cutting it up. I'm shaving it into powder. I'm rolling it up. I'm smoking it like it's Free Spirit cigarettes. And I'm just getting this real lame-ass buzz. And I know that I've relapsed. And I'm really pissed because I'm not getting high. I'm like, shit, if I relapsed, I want to get high.
Yeah, you're really fucked up.
I haven't decided if I was coming back or not, but I knew that I really wanted to get high, and that shit wasn't working. I ended up at a poker game with some friends that had known me for more than 10 years. I'd been sober almost 8. And we're playing, and they said, "Hey, do you want something to drink?" And I was like, "Yeah, what do you got?" So, well, we got some Crown and some Jaeger. Oh, no. We got some Diet Coke for you. I was like, no. So I'm drinking Crown like it's iced tea.
I've got a story like that.
I'm washing it down with Jägermeister, and I played poker for a couple days, and I'm not drunk. I've got dozens of alcohol and drug-related arrests, at least 6 or 7, combination evadings and DWIs while drunk and or high. And I think it's a good idea to drive and go get my drug of choice. My drug of choice was any, yours, more. But crack really, really was one of those things that had a hold of me. My dad saw me smoking crack one time, and it broke his heart. He fell down. He was like crying. He was like in pain. And it was one of the reasons why when he asked me to go to CA back in 98 that I went. And to that first CA meeting, I heard the message, man. This guy was a pimp, and he was in an all green suit. And he says, he's got the hat with the feathers sticking out. He's got the cane. His name was Fred. It was Bonnie Bray off of Montrose. And, he's walking around, doing his little thing. And he says,
walk,
yeah,
the swagger.
Yeah. He says, make sure I get it right. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can reach the alcoholic must have depth and weight. And I remember that. And that's a pretty good imitation of a black pimp. And I remembered that, man. And I start listening, and he starts telling my story, man. And he shoots pool, and I shot pool at 24-hour slicks for a long time and dealt out of there and warmed up games for Whitey and Freeko and some old guys back then. And
I suck at pool.
And man, I didn't want to get high anymore, man. I really didn't. And when they asked, does anybody have a desire to stop using, I did. And as I walked up there, as I trudged up there to get my first desire chip, I'm crying because I don't want to get high. But I know that I'm going to get high that night. That was May of 98. And then I already told you I went to treatment in July, and I got sober, and it worked as long as I worked it.
Yeah.
So we're back to 06, and I'm at the poker game, and I decided to drive and go get some of that stuff. And I'm in a hotel room for a couple of days, and I almost kill myself. And I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any dealers in my phone.
Overdose or?
Almost close. My kidneys were almost locking up. What happened was the guy that brought me some, he brought me enough, we thought. It was like, I think it was like a quarter ounce or something. And it was already rocked up. But I smoked it like in, I don't know, 6-7 hours. So it was a lot of crack to smoke first time back in 8 years. But it was just geeking. It was just horrible, man. I was like, it was like horrible. And then when I called him to bring me some more, and he came and he saw me, he's like, you went through all that? How many people you have over here? No, hell no, man. I ain't giving you no more. That was it, man. He wouldn't sell me no more.
How did you survive that?
Well, I mean, I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was a lot. I think it was a quarter. And that's a lot to smoke by yourself in one night. It was enough for the crack dealer to say, man, I ain't giving you no more. I mean, it's a crack dealer with a heart? Really? I was like, man, that's what you're doing, man. You're supposed to just, man, we got money, you sell it to us, that's your job. But he didn't, and that saved my life. And so, I relapsed on hydro, crown, and crack in that order. And I told my ex, I said, hey, man, I need you to bring my dro, and I need you to bring me some crown. I've been smoking for a couple of days. She's calling me, every 20 minutes till her phone dies, till my phone died. And so she brought it to me, and I called my sponsor. I hadn't talked to him, but on his birthday, my birthday, maybe Christmas, for years, hadn't been around. I'm flying all over the country. I'm living in Dallas. I'm living in Cali. I'm living in Vegas. I'm not doing recovery. I'm doing sobriety. I'm not drinking. I'm not using. I don't want to. I don't want to drink and use, but I'm not doing the deal. So the insanity returned. I picked up again. I called my sponsor, and I said, hey, Ron, I relapsed. So he says, no shit. About 6 years ago when you stopped coming around, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back to treatment at the park? I said, no. I'm going to go get a desire chip, and we're going to work the steps again. Will you be my sponsor? He said, I'm always your sponsor. I don't ever fire sponsees. Y'all either die or quit. It's like, fuck. But he's always told me that. So we went through the steps again in 06 and started cleaning up the wreckage of the past.
So you didn't go back to treatment?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah. Now, I hung out at the park a lot, and that's where I met a lot of the main alumni that are still there now. Darren and Terry, who are like the matriarch and the patriarch of the park right now.
How long has that place been around?
Well, the park started over there in Memorial, off of La Concha by the Astrodome. I want to say in 05-ish, 04. One of my litter mates from 98, Randy L., who has 22 years this summer in July, got sober when he was 20. He'd been sober more than half his life last year. He was one of the main guys that took the Memorial Herman, the Spring Shadows AA group and all that, took it up there to La Concha to the Memorial Herman, and that's where it became the Memorial Herman Park Patient and Recovery Facility. And then it now moved back to Spring Shadows. So it's called the Memorial Herman Park over here now, and it's in Spring Shadows off Gessner and Clay. It's real surreal and nostalgic for it to be right there where a lot of us got, clean and sober at. My sponsor went through there. My sponsor's sponsor went through there when it was Spring Shadows. There's a guy that got sober in March that was part of the group the facility that it was before it was Spring Shadows, which is in that same building at Gessner and Kempwood. His name is Joe L. I want to say he had 33 years last month. But anyway, so back to this time.
Yeah.
Making all these amends, and I told you I created a lot of wreckage with all this house flipping and all this real estate stuff and all this money. I was working on a project in Vegas, and I thought that I was going to be able to cash out, $15 million worth of real estate here in Texas, but that didn't happen. So grandiose and delusional is what the alcoholic is. I told my sponsor, I said, hey, man, I got a lot of wreckage of the past. I got a lot of financial amends, legal amends. Do I need to go let, the authorities, the Fed know? He said, you know what? You were with the president. You made security clearance. You're paying your taxes. You're doing everything. If they want you, they know where you're at. Yeah. About 6 months later, I got an indictment in 2008 for stuff that I didn't know too.
Sure enough, they knew where you're at.
Yeah. The reason that indictment came down is because of the crash that was upcoming, the change of power in the White House from Republican to Democrat. And whenever that happens, everybody wants to earn their stripes, earn their cred. Yeah. So when the Republicans take over, they want to go and bash on the Democrats, and the Democrats did the same thing. I was very high profile fundraiser for Bush Cheney 04. I was the surrogate for the third, the highest fundraiser for his campaign from 2000 to 04. I don't want to put his name in this, but anyway, his father was having surgery during the time that we were in the convention in New York in 04, and he asked me to go. So I sat in the boxes with the Bushes. I had the best seats, the best hotel, one of the best hotel rooms at the Four Seasons. With, patio. And I mean, it was, all grandiose and delusional and all that. But long story short, if you will, even though I don't claim political affiliations, I was doing it just to clean up. I was going to suck up to the GOP. Yep. It didn't matter who they were.
And whoever made money.
Yeah, it happened to be the Republicans at the time so that I could clean off my little background. And then it ended up dirtying it up even more. So we got to do that again now. Now we're going to try one, huh?
Little goosey from the front.
That's how we all do. That's how we all do it. That's how everybody does it. In 2008, a lot of people got indicted, unnecessarily. My story is I did what I did, but there's a lot of complications. There's a lot of what's it called? Injustice, if you will, with procedure and law, and the system's a little bit broke in a lot of ways, but it's still one of the best systems in the world. I read a book called Shantaram. It's about a guy who was a bank robber in Australia. He escapes and he goes to India, and he gets involved with the mob, but he's also makes this big clinic for all the slums, and he's stealing medicines and bandages and all kinds of stuff, and healing the people in the slums at the same time. He's a underworld drug lord, but he gets arrested, and he's in jail, and the conditions are horrible. And it's 6 months before he doesn't even get a phone call. I mean, he doesn't get a lawyer, he doesn't get court, he's just thrown in jail. And when I was about halfway through with my time, I read that book, and it just made everything so much easier. The book says that God is everything or he's nothing. The even bigger book says that we know that God, all things work for the good of those that love God. So anyway, everything that I've gone through has been, part of my story. And I said that when I first walked in here. No matter how far down the scale I've gone, my experience can benefit others. So I've been very involved in my recovery since I came home back in March of last year. And I sponsor quite a few guys, but the truth is that they've all wanted it and they've all done it. They've been doing the work. I do it a little differently than a lot of people do it. We do a lot of stuff in a group. We do group step work. We do group chat. We check in. When guys don't check in on them, I tell guys to go check on them. Check on your brothers that aren't checking in. And it seems to be working because that is what we talked about, sponsored training. And, my sponsor told me that if I was too hands-on with my guys, my codependency would take over, and I wouldn't allow the guys to come and get this recovery. It's not for those that want it. It's not for those that need it. It's for those that do it. I have worked the 12 steps. I continue to work them. I have a sponsor that continues to work them. And I stay right in the middle of it. When we weren't in quarantine, when we weren't on stay-home orders, I was at the park a couple times a week. I was in meetings daily, if not multiple times a day. I love AA because it gave me a life. All that time that I was making money, all that time that I was running all over the country, in nice hotels, first class, presidential functions, all that stuff was empty. It was all vanity. It was all grandiose and delusional, and doesn't mean anything now. What means something is when a guy's father tells you, thank you that you gave me my son. I was at the Post Oak Club in November. The guy that was with you over there at SLH, he raised his hand in the meeting, and he says, I need some help. And after the meeting, we went up to him. His name is Jim, and that's innocuous enough to keep his anonymity. And those that know him, and those that know our story, me and Jim and I's story.
We love Jim.
Yeah, man. He couldn't even hold his phone and put our numbers in it. So I had to put my number in his phone and another guy's number in his phone. And Jim started calling me, and he said, I don't want to drink. And he said, I don't want to live. I don't want to drink, and I don't want to live. And I've been there. I was there when I was 19, before I got that first DWI. I ran out of money one summer. I was 18, as a matter of fact, and I was going to jump off the ledge at Richmond and 610, the Chase Bank building. That was my jumping off place. But I said, Jim, get me with somebody that loves you. Get me with your wife. Get me with your dad. Get me with your mama. If you want to stop drinking, I can help you. And he did. And I told his dad to take him to the emergency room, to take him to sober living, to get him to a detox. And his dad took him to Sugar Land Memorial. And I drove down there from the Woodlands. and his dad said, you live in the Woodlands? And I said, yeah, I live in the Woodlands. And he said, you came down here to see Jim? I said, yeah, I came down here to see Jim. I walked into the hospital with my big book, and I told him when he gets detoxed that we need to get him to sober living. And I called James over there at sober living. And I said, you got a spot for this guy? He says, we always got a spot. And that guy, he got almost 30 days and he relapsed. And then he got almost 90. And I think he's still going now.
Yep.
I think he's got 5 months or so now.
Yeah, 6.
But yeah, almost 6, 7. Yep. Okay.
So actually 7 or 8.
But in December, when
we're talking about the same Jim,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's doing good.
In December, when I saw his dad, that's what his dad said to me. His dad shook my hand and he said, thank you for giving me my boy back. So the book says, frequent contact with the newcomer and each other. That's the high point of our life. That's why I do it. That's most of it. That's most of the good stuff.
Yeah.
So how'd I do on time? Good?
Oh man, you're doing good, man. You want me
to go for another 10? Yeah.
You want to?
Okay.
Keep rolling, man. You got me on the edge of my seat.
Okay. First step, powerlessness. The powerlessness is before you drink, and it's definitely after you drink. The book says that when the alcoholic takes in alcohol, or his drug of choice, if you will, that the phenomenon of craving is activated. So that's the powerlessness after. We understand that. But the powerlessness before, my experience with the powerlessness before, is that regardless of all of the consequences that I've lived through, that I know about, that my dad lived through, that my grandfather lived through, I still want to glorify and romanticize the beauty of good wine and a porterhouse with lobster, some Chateau Lafite, maybe a little, Le Montrachet, white Burgundy, a little shot of Louis the 13th after, but it's never that, Yeah. It's always a crack house with my foot on the door so they don't break in and I can take my last hit, So that's the powerlessness before and the powerlessness after. That's the obsession of the mind. This alcoholic, this addict's mind will allow me to think and romanticize and glorify drug use and alcohol use, even though I drank alcoholically from the very first drink that I ever had. I'll still only want to focus on those few little good times. And we go back to the story of the pile of shit and the pile of production. Well, that's how it is with alcoholism and addiction. You have this little small pile of good memories of when you got high and when you got drunk and it was good and you were with the hot chicks and you were at the nice beach party and all that. And then it's way outweighed by all of the consequences and all of the BS. But that powerlessness and that delusion and that lie make you focus on this little bit. Second step, coming to believe that a power greater than myself. Alcohol and drugs were a power greater than myself for decades in my life. It wasn't hard to come to an AA meeting and see people with time that, had homes and cars and jobs and paid their bills and were happy. That's what it is for me. The power greater than myself, the higher power in the rooms is the group of drunks. That is my God. If we're going to talk ministry, then I'm going to draw the line. I'm going to say, this is AA. This is where I save my ass with the 12 steps and God of my understanding, group of drunks, my higher power. And then ministry is something altogether different.
Yeah. You are the people who you're around, you become who you're, for sure. Anyway.
Third step, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. I told you I did my third step prayer before I knew what a third step prayer was. I said, God, if you want me to be sober, make it easy. And he did. And it was. And it is. It's so much easier than getting high, getting drunk, re-upping, lying, stealing, cheating, doing whatever it takes to get what I want. That is so much harder than doing this. That is so much harder. So that's what I did with that. So the third step, the third tradition, and the primary purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous all link in together. The third tradition says that the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. The third step says that we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. And the primary purpose says, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. So you just tie all that together. Mm. That's the foundation of my program.
Are we allowed to mention the term AA on? Just yeah. All right. Keep rolling with it. Keep rolling. We're learning. You're good.
Okay.
Keep rolling.
Fourth step, made a fearless and searching moral inventory. I break down the 12 steps into 3 phases. Steps 1, 2, and 3 is give up. Steps 4 through 10 is fess up, and step 11 and 12 is serve up. So in 4, you make that inventory. In 5, you tell somebody else and God about everything that you need to tell them about to clean out some of that wreckage from your heart. Then in 6 and 7, you really take a look at yourself. Alcoholics, our common denominator, selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. From there, a spider web of character defects and shortcomings can blossom. But they all come back to those 4: selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. I learned in 5 that my problem was when I didn't get my way, I wanted to be an asshole or I wanted to lie, cheat, and steal to get my way.
Total asshole.
That's what we do. That's how we do it.
No kidding.
But now that you have a solution. And in 6 and 7, it's just kind of magnified a little bit. In 8, you make a list of people that you had harmed. The alcoholic and addict usually blames everybody else for everything that he's going through, so everybody else harmed him. And that's what my sponsor told me to do. He said, write down that list of everybody that harmed you. So he tricked me, and he reversed me right up into it. I did that, and then after looking at what my part was, I saw that it was me that was being the ass, me that was lying, cheating, stealing, trying to get my way, to get my drug, my drink, my will on. In 10, we continue to take, in 9, we go out to make amends to everybody. And that's not about saying I'm sorry anymore, because most alcoholics and addict and me, I had said I'm sorry to too many people for too long to where the words became meaningless. So yeah. 9th step amends has nothing to do with I'm sorry. 9th step amends has to do with acknowledging the bad behavior, making a change, and not doing it anymore. In 10, we look at ourselves daily, and that's one of my favorite parts of the book. It has 4 continues in it. It says, continue to watch for the character defects: selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we go to God at once and ask him to remove them. That's where we get trust God, clean house, help others. The next thing it tells you to do, it says talk to somebody about it, make amends quickly, clean house. Then the last one is turn your thoughts and actions. We resolutely turn our thoughts and actions over to somebody we can help. That's helping others. That's the program. Trust God, clean house, help others. In 11 and 12, how does prayer and meditation help others? Well, when I get angry, I like to do all kinds of crazy stuff. And I know a lot of us do. And some of us are capable of violence. Some of us are capable of really harming ourselves or harming others. So prayer and meditation can save our asses and save those around us asses also. But it's a communion and a communication with the God consciousness of the group and the God as you understand him. At first, you learn how to pray and ask for things. God, if you want me to be sober, make it easy. Then we learn how to pray and give thanks and be grateful for all that you've given me. God, thank you for this gift of sobriety for one more day. In 12, we help others. We work the steps. We chair meetings. We go on 12-step calls when the alcoholic or the addict that's in his cups needs us. We go into hospitals, institutions, and we take the message. And that's where Tina B is so big. She's so involved. She's the chair of the conference that was going to be here in Houston this year, the Hacky Paw, the hospital and institutions chair. And when we weren't on quarantine, when we weren't on stay-at-home orders, she was scheduling at least once a week a group of us to go in and bring the message to people in treatment. We're still able to do that a little bit on Zoom, and I have a very strong feeling that because of this Zoom taking off so much, that even when we're able to go back into the buildings, go back into treatment centers, go back into institutions, Zoom is still going to have its place. People in New York are going to want to see what's going on in Houston and California. People in Houston want to see what's going on in Canada, and Zoom is going to let us take it to the next level.
A whole new dynamic. Yeah.
The same way the printing press in the 1600s took the Bible and spread it out, the Gutenberg press. So that was the 12 steps in a nutshell. That should have been just about my 10 minutes.
Oh, man, you're doing perfect.
Now I'm on the hot seat.
No.
Can I take a break and go smoke real quick?
We've got about 5 minutes. So if you guys want to wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. So, how is, I have a 16-year-old daughter. I had to write, dude, it was the hardest thing in the freaking world to write her an amends letter. I haven't talked to her in almost 11 months. Now, I think that's about to change now, but how is your relationship with your children nowadays?
That's a tough one. My daughter, I adopted her from my ex-wife's previous marriage, my ex-wife's first marriage. Renee and I have been very close at times. We've been very estranged at times. She called me daddy on one of our first dates. I had been dating her mother for a while, but I had only just met her. And her biological father wouldn't come pick her up on Saturdays. And so I ended up taking her out with her mother and I. And on one Saturday, I took her over to Scott and Gina's house. Yeah. And they have a daughter that is Renee's age, Leanne. And they're still the same age. But so we're over there, and Renee's in the pool, I'm in the pool, and Leanna's running around the pool with her little floaty on. And she says, Renee says to Leanne, go ahead and jump in. My daddy's got you. I'm like, what? I mean, all I had done was read her a story once and talk to her on the phone a couple times, and that was our first date. And like I told you early in my story, all kids want that family unit, mommy, daddy, baby. And when her mother and I got married, very shortly after that, she said to me, I want my last name, to be the same as yours and mommy's. And the baby was coming. So he's Zachary. So I adopted her immediately. It took about a year. And her parents had taken her kid from her through the courts. And they had to come to court and they had to release. They had to say, the ad litem went and interviewed them, interviewed us, and all that stuff. And anyway, so I formally adopted Renee. And when I got in trouble, there's a lot of complications there. And she got a version that was a little different from my version from her mother. So we were estranged for a while. She was about 12. So on and off for the time that I was gone, we'd go through where she would take my phone calls and wouldn't. And when I came home, she came to visit me, and I went over there and we visited, and we were rebuilding. And then now something else has happened. So we're just going to go through this little cycle. I know that it's going to come back. So I love my daughter. I promised my mother, I promised her. When we got married, Renee was part of the ceremony. And before I kissed her mother, I got down on one knee. I put a necklace on her neck, and it said, Daddy's little girl. And I said, do you know what this means? And she said, yeah, we're married, and you got to do what I tell you for the rest of your life. I said, well, that's not exactly how it goes, but you get the gist of it, obviously, from your mom. I love you. I'll always be your daddy no matter what. And so I'll say that now. She's on Facebook. I don't know if she'll see this. It might have came across her feed. Man. She might eventually, but I will always love her. And when all of the truth and all of the facts of everything that's going on right now with us come out, she will feel differently about it, the same way that she has for several things where she was mad at me justifiably or unjustifiably, but it all will reconcile. And I'll always want to be in her life and my grandchildren's life. Two beautiful boys, Evan and David. My son, Zachary, he is amazing. He is the exact opposite of his father. The boy is disciplined. The boy is humble. The boy is quiet. The boy works hard. He's been in ROTC for 4 years, and he's number 2 in his squadron. He's got a full ride to go to West A&M, I believe. Yeah. He's accepted, and he's got a full ride in ROTC, or at least a partial ride or something. But that's where he wants to go. So he's got the money and he's got everything. He calls me. He wants to spend time with me. He likes to hang out with me. When he had his own car, he had the opportunity to be anywhere he wanted to be, and he'd come and spend the night at my house all weekend. He'd say, "What time are you getting home? Where do you want to go eat? What do you want to do?" This past year on Christmas, he knew that I wanted to go feed the homeless with the Heights Club. And that was Saturday morning, Christmas Eve. And he asked me Friday night, he said, "What time are you getting up?" And I said, "Probably about 6:37. And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, because I want to go with you, make sure that I'm up." And that was the greatest gift that I could have received, that he wanted to be with me doing what I wanted to do on Christmas.
Yeah.
So to say the least, with all of the mistakes that I made, the restorations because of this program and because of the life that I try to live are huge.
Yeah, I miss my daughter just a little bit. I know she's 16. She's very focused in school. Her grades are good. She's Charlie and I love combative sports. She's a first degree black belt in Olympic Taekwondo and a pretty good one. So, I miss watching her train and watching her fight. So, speaking of fighting, Saul Solis, shout out to him.
Hey, Saul.
Yeah, that was a Saul's a Gladiator Academy. 2 broken noses right there from experience with Saul. That's good stuff, man.
Well, Saul didn't break my nose, but he did beat on me a couple times.
Yeah. The guys Saul in that academy will rough you up. Whew. Yeah. So, a lot of serious fighters.
I want to say something to you about the kids. The main thing that we need to do is continue to let them know that we want to be a part of their lives, and we don't have to tell them what we're doing with our life. They will see it. They will see it. My son and my daughter have told me the same thing in different words. Daddy, if everything that we've heard about you from our mother was true, the people that are in your life today would not treat you the way that they do. I've got a guy who let me stay in a, $600,000-$700,000 house, fully furnished builder model for a year, no rent. I've had people help me try to get work, try to get cars, try to do this, try to do that. The people in my life, continue to bend over backwards for me, even though I was gone for a long time.
Yeah, man, the recovery community is awesome.
Well, he's not in recovery. He's just the old business partner, and he loves me. And but they don't love me. They love the recovery in me, the principles that are behind the steps that I try to live in my life. I'm not perfect. Make a lot of mistakes still, but
Cool. Any parting last words you want to leave with anybody?
Anything you want to promote?
Yeah.
You said you wanted to promote something.
The park doesn't need too much promotion. They make pretty good money, but the Post Oak Club, we would love to have you. Tina B and I do a meeting on Thursday nights, which is a 12 and 12 study at 8:00. I'm there at 6:30, and we also do White Oak at 9:30, 7 days a week. That room ID could be in the chat box real easily. You can Facebook me, messenger me. It's pretty easy to find on the Post Oak website, postoakclub.com, all of our meetings, but especially that Thursday meeting, 6:30, 8:00, and 9:30.
Cool.
So White Oak, 7 days a week at 9:30.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. I feel good. I almost want to hug.
My pleasure. Yeah. No social distancing, right? Now
You
we
didn't
stay
see that,
home.
folks.
Hey, we stay home and we are doing social distancing, but
So
we're all good, man. That was a pleasure, man. Thank you. It was an honor to be able to talk about recovery.
no, the honor was all ours. That was great. I really enjoyed it. So Friday we have Ian Black coming on the show, and he's full of all kinds of jokes, and he's got his own YouTube channel, and we're going to talk to him a little bit.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, he's got his own YouTube channel.
I didn't know that.
Dude's like Jack Black, man. He's got that kind of sense.
How many
of humor.
subscribers do you have?
I don't know. Quite a few, I
I'm
think.
about to look on it right now. I'm about to subscribe.
He's a graphic artist. Him and I have talked about art. I'm kind of like a closet artist myself. So, but anyway.
We love Ian. Ian's a big part of Post Oak. He's a big part of White Oak. I love Ian Black.
Well, we're going to have him on Friday. You want to hang out? All right, guys. Well, we will see you Friday. And let your freak flags fly. And enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.
Trust God, clean house, help others.